Mr Chair, I move the motion be now put.
Mr Chairman.
Well, no, I'm going to the Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. And I've come into the House to listen to this debate, and I guess taxation for the National Party, of course, has always been really important. They've focused a lot on it in their campaigning, of course, saying that lower taxes are nirvana and higher taxes are outrageous and will cripple the economy. How then can the National Party bring in to this House a bill that increases taxation 50%? This bill increases the KiwiSaver default contribution by 50%, from 2% to 3%. Is that a 50% increase? Yes. Is that going to cripple the economy? Well, on the basis of arguments we've heard in this House for years from the National Party, any increase in taxation will cripple the economy. That's what they say. That's why, part two, that's why, part four, that's why
Order. We're actually on part 4. Part of the things you've been talking about are in part 5. I'm giving you the opportunity. Part 4.
Thank you very much. It's the GST, and I appreciate the Chairman's guidance on that. I'll stick to the issue around GST, because the one of late payment fees. And I guess the issue is, well, this is the party, the great party in National, that wants to slash all taxes, because that's going to provide a way forward. So what we have, it's a tax grab, all right. So we're now going to have GST on late payment fees. Do we pay GST on fines? When I get a parking fine, do we pay GST on that? Speeding fine? No, I've had the odd one of those. But the question is, do we pay GST on fines? Because it's not a late payment fee, it's a late parking fee. It's a service. Oh, you see, GST. The question is that if we're going to place GST on late payment fees, which most people would see as a penalty or a fine, that's right, against accounting advice, all the advice to the government, if we're going to start charging GST there, then will the government have in this House a piece of legislation to put GST on parking fines, on fines imposed by any part of the court system? And I'm guessing that would open the way for some interesting constitutional issues. The government could be honest and say, well, we're just increasing the fine. But what part of that fine then would come back into the GST pot? And if the accounting advice on this change to legislation is that it shouldn't occur, then I'm guessing maybe the government's going to not move on fines. But we want, and I think most New Zealanders expect, some kind of consistency in legislation. Well, it might be. On one hand, they have championed the lowering of taxation on their mates. That's if you earn over 100 grand. If you earn high incomes, we have to cut. And of course, the GST argument, the GST that this government, through this change, is now going to impose on late payment fees, right? That extra GST is just like the increase in the GST charge they put across the whole economy. Across the whole economy, they didn't mention it though. And I guess the question that we must ask of a minister, if this is going through against good accounting advice, what else has the government got in store for people? Because the one thing they have consistently done is made it easier for people at the top who spend a lower portion of their income on GST liable goods, and made it harder at the bottom for the average New Zealander who spends the vast majority of all their income on GST liable goods, because they don't have much chance, much opportunity to move into the financial sector or to spend their money offshore, because most of them are struggling to survive. Mr Chairman, this is just, in my view, another odd proposal by the government I'm advised by my colleagues that has been advised against by the accountancy industry, and the government is determined to push through with this, Mr Chairman.
The Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Is determined to push through with this in the same ridiculous, idiotic way that they're pushing ahead with their asset sales. And the consistency of that is that we've got good advice that these are both bad things to do. We've got professional advice. Well, history absolutely proves us right. Clearly no students of history over there. That in spite of that advice that GST on late payment fees is not good accounting practice and selling state assets is not good economic practice, why is it that this government, national government, partnered by the ACT Party, partnered by their party, their mate John Banks, this government is determined to push ahead with stupid things where the advice they have from professional people is that it shouldn't happen? Well, I guess people will make their own conclusions, hopefully, in 2 years' time. And I'm happy to take sooner. There is the opportunity, and I should be very aware of that. That's right. Well, I'm not sure. He will be. Yeah, some people... What kind of animal eats grass? No, we can't say that. Mr Chairman, this is just one component of this bill here that clearly exposes, and I'll have the opportunity to talk about increase in taxation at a rate of 50% later on, but clearly here the imposition of GST on late payment fees does raise the possibility that we will have GST imposed next on parking fines, on speeding fines, on any kind of penalty that can be imposed on anyone. What about the question must be around the fee that the National Party imposed on people in the courts? What was that fee? The $50 fee, is it, or something? They've got a standard fee on everyone going through.
Victims of crime.
Victims of crime, that's right. Will there be a GST component to that payment? The Minister perhaps will hop up and tell us that. No? Silence. Okay. Well, the thing that people expect of Parliament, as I've said before, is consistency and is fair and reasonable law. Consistently quiet is... That's consistently inconsistent would be the way I would put it. And that the only thing we do know is that if you're poor and you're paying these things, you're going to pay more, the national government, and if you're wealthy and you can get out of them, you won't. So late payment fees will generally be imposed upon people who struggle to pay their bills. Struggle to pay their bills for whatever reasons, mainly because they don't have enough income to cover all their costs. And there are hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders. We've got the level of child poverty in this country. What will this additional GST charge do for those people who are already on the breadline or in fact below it? Mr Speaker, in summary, this is just another Tory piece of legislation that makes it harder for people at the bottom and makes it easier for people at the top. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Maggie Berry.
I move that the question be now put.
I'll hear from Clayton Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr Chair.